Nate asked me to present tonight. I'm really honored to be here to have the opportunity to highlight the important work that we're doing here at the Apollo Career Center to ensure that all of our students, by the time they leave our programs, are prepared for their next steps. Whether that be continuing in post-secondary education, heading into the workforce, military or other volunteer opportunities when they leave us. We are doing cutting edge work in the area of employment skill development. So I'm excited to be here to talk about that. I want to give you a little bit of background about me. Many of you know me, some of you do not. And I'm hoping that you can appreciate the various lenses that I put to this work in. So I'm presenting, but I also have been heavily involved in the development of the work that we're doing here in terms of employability skill development. So I'm a graduate of this building a long time ago. It's getting longer and longer every single year. I've been here teaching business leadership. This is my 11th year in that role. I'm also the new co-op coordinator in this building new this year. I'm a founding member of the equity leadership team here in the district. So part of the kind of the grassroots effort that started in June of 2020 that has now evolved to the great work that we're doing in centering equity in all of our schools. I'm a small business owner. I've been in business for 21 years in our community. I've maintained a certification as a Dale Carnegie instructor, a community leader, and a mom of a student within our schools. So when I come to this work every day, and particularly in the area of employability skills, I'm coming at it from all of these areas. It is something that I care about very, very deeply. Both really invested in career and tech ed, but specifically in these particular transferable skills because I see the incredible importance in a future that is really, really unpredictable, where we know that technical skills are just changing and evolving at such a rapid pace that we know from industry, we know from research and from data that these are the skills that transfer. These are the skills that are not replaced by AI. These are the skills that will differentiate our students out in the great wide world in the amazing work that we will continue to do. I did mention that we have these employability skills that I believe that we are on the leading edge of this work. We have been refining these skills for all of the time that I've been here. Like anything in education and in industry, good practice is continuous improvement. So I don't think we're never going to be there. It's never going to be perfected. We will continue to evolve and respond. We have our employability skills areas now consolidated into 6 primary focus areas. So the handout that's coming around, we can kind of pass it along. As that's coming around, just a little context. So 11 years ago, when I started, we had kind of this rubric, if you will, for employability skills. It included things like physical presentation, like how you dress, and language that you use, and some personal hygiene types of things. And those rubrics were kind of the good practice in CTE, at least in the state of Vermont, as far as we know, at that time. And we have just stayed committed to making sure that this evolution of these skills has progressed in a way that is truly connected to skill development, not just how folks present themselves in the world, but what they can do and how they can influence the environments that they're in. So give you a minute just to take a look at these 6 areas. We worked really tirelessly to get to this iteration where these skills have a very clear goal and really simple and easy to understand language with 3 performance indicators, again, in student focused, but also something that's employer friendly, as all of these skills have been developed with the guidance and input of employers across all industries through our employee advisory groups here, through all of our programs, and also in collaboration with other instructors across the state who are in our career clusters. And the growth principles and commitments at the bottom are the things that we expect that all students are bringing to the table in their work and for supporting their development. I hope also that you will see a very clear crosswalk to the work that is being done at Franklin Northeast around proficiency-based learning and around our graduate work. There is nothing here in this work that does not easily and seamlessly crosswalk to those proficiencies that we are working on and for our students leaving. These are yours to take, so feel free to. One of the things that I've committed to and that we've committed to at Apollo this year is continuing to work with our instructors around some good practices for helping students to develop the knowledge, understanding, and skills necessary to leave here ready for the workplace and other things that they will do. So I invested time this summer with the KDB framework, so know, understand, do, and really breaking down these skills to look at what is the essential knowledge that is really required if we're going to expect that students kind of demonstrate these skills. Because these are the do things. These are the things that we would, the behaviors and the things that we would see students being able to do. But they're, like all skills, there is foundational based knowledge that is required there and understanding in order for either that demonstration of skill to be there at all, or for students coming in with some base skill in those areas for them to take it to the next level. So I'm going to ask Courtney on this next slide to click on this website. This is a website that we launched a couple of years ago prior to COVID. When COVID hit, we kind of took it down and did a little reassessment and have brought it back this year. This is a site that all of our students and instructors have access to. And Courtney, if you would go to the skills dropdown and click on communication. So we have our 6 skill areas. Each one of them has its own page where the performance indicators are broken down into explanations that would be easy for students to understand. And then this landing page for each content area with 8 resources that are an assortment of things like TED Talks or YouTube videos or articles or blog posts that I have worked with instructors to curate that are applicable to all programs, so they are not industry specific, but would give students a chance to build some of that knowledge and understanding and give instructors a place to maybe pull some resources to integrate into their classroom instruction. And so each one of the skills has these resources curated. And then we are also working this year at the program level for instructors to identify industry-specific resources in these 6 categories that will have a page just for their program where those resources can be housed and easily accessible to them and to students, and kind of building that bank of industry-specific resources in these categories, also supported by our advisory boards across industries. So in addition to this website, work that we're doing this year around that KVD framework takes some instructor resources, and these are not student-facing, but resources that I've built for instructors and that we will work to further develop collaboratively with instructors and with industry, for instructors to be able to have some additional resources to integrate into their practice, into their instructional practice, to help students specifically with knowledge and understanding. What we were finding is that we in CTE were so focused on skill development, and we do that really, really well. We do hands-on workplace relevant skill development. And yet when we go to assess these employability skills, we were kind of running into this situation where it became not difficult. We could assess them, but there was something missing. And what I'm proposing this year that may have been missing is this idea of how to assess the knowledge and understanding separately from the skill development. And when we tried to put all of those things together, the feedback and the assessment just didn't feel quite right. So, Courtney, if you would click on that resource. So again, internal for our instructors is now a resource. This is iteration number 1. I do not expect that this is it, but I think folks are excited about having this. So we have this KUD framework for each one of the employability skill areas. And if you would scroll down, Courtney, that's okay. Page 2, I think we'll get us to early. So for example, dependability is one of our content areas. And so instructors have access to now some information around know and understand. The do part is what we've been focusing on right along. These are the performance indicators from that handout that I gave you that we have been, actively working on skill development with students. Now what we've built in is what needs to happen in terms of knowledge building and understanding capacity to ensure that this, number 1, happens, and number 2, can happen at the greatest level possible for all of our students. So we've identified some key vocabulary and key concepts. And if you scroll down, Courtney, each one of these areas then has, gets us back to the website and then the teacher resources. If you So this document then is an instructional little database, if you will, of some instructional ideas. Starting place, we're working on this together, and I'm excited about PD time on Tuesdays for some of that time this year for our staff to be used to continue to develop these instructional strategies. Things that are quick, easy, does not mean for an instructor that they have to figure out how to fit in something new, because we believe that these skills are integrated into our content areas. And then if you scroll down to page 2, we'll get an example again for dependability. 3 core vocabulary terms with some descriptions that are contextually appropriate. So what I found as an instructor, a lot of times we can say, okay, well, we're going to talk about integrity, but integrity can mean a lot of different things in different contexts, in different industries, and different applications. And I know as an instructor, sometimes it can feel overwhelming to be like, well, I know what that is. But in terms of like finding the language to present it to a student in a way that feels on point, can sometimes feel, when you have a million other things to do, just like overwhelming. So I did kind of go through and curate and look for those accurate descriptions that are contextually appropriate for the work that we do here, to take some of that lift off of our instructors. And then at the bottom of each one of these is a resource bank for not resources that we developed, because I also believe very strongly with a commitment to efficiency, that there is no need to recreate the wheel if we don't have to, but gone out and found applicable and relevant resources to support the strategies, the concepts, the tools that an instructor can use with their classes. Again, this bank of resources is all transferable to all programs, not necessarily industry specific, but we will be working this year for those industry specific resources as well. Ready to go to the next slide. Just briefly want to give you an example of what this looks like in practice. And this is super relevant to this week. Monday, yesterday, my students, when they come into business leadership, have a morning discussion prompt that they do online, and they have some think time to respond, and it's usually an entry point into content that we're going to be covering or a little formative assessment, sometimes just for fun. And they have to respond to a couple of peers, and then we have a discussion to launch our time together. So I had posed questions about integrity because we hadn't talked about it yet. We had been talking about dependability as an employability skill. So I posed that question, asked them how they thought they could connect it without having any direct instruction yet. And so they had some awesome insights, as you would expect that they would. And it gave us a place then to launch in to a really great, deep discussion, not just about like, hey, you gotta show up on time and you gotta, be prepared and follow expectations, but getting them to really think about how their own personal integrity is connected to that and what it means when we bring integrity to the work that we do with employers or in other contexts as well. This was like 15 minutes at the beginning of the class, and it got us to a level that allowed us to have a different kind of discussion, and I know will allow us to have a different kind of exploration of these skills. And Courtney, we can skip. Well, let's just touch on this briefly. Just contextually, from my practice in business leadership, we'll be connecting dependability to work that we're doing right now. That's connected to purpose mindset, for values, strengths, and helping students to get to know themselves so that they can bring their best selves to all of the work that they do in their life. So we're accessing this content in terms of knowledge building. We're exploring and interacting with big picture concepts and context to build your capacity for greater understanding. And then, as we always do in career tech, we're practicing. So in my program, as well as in all of our programs, we expect students to do things like call in if they're not going to be here. So no parents calling in, no caregiver calling in. They may still have to do that for the high school, but here, just like in the job, they are responsible for picking up the phone and letting their instructor know that they're not coming in and making arrangements to get caught up, just like you would in the workplace. Same thing if they're going to be tardy. If they know they're going to be missing class, we have every program has their own process, but in my program, they schedule that time off. So they come, they talk to me like I'm the boss. They say, hey, I've got this thing going on. I've got students going to FFA, to the national convention coming up. So the students are coming to me and saying, here's my calendar. Here's when I'm going to be out. We put that in our team Google Calendar so everybody knows what the team dynamic is going to be, and they are responsible for doing that. In addition to a lot of other workplace relevant routines and good practices that exist in all of them. So we are building this capacity in them here in this building. So it is not just, here's what you should know, here's the poster, but they're getting a chance to practice it with good support and coaching. The last two things that I'm really excited about are the assessment of these skills. And again, I mentioned that I think that this is a place where we've had a little bit of a breakdown in terms of the assessment not feeling like it is really reflecting comprehensively where students are at. This is a proposal. We're going to try it out, and I anticipate that we will adjust and fine tune it. But I'm looking at breaking out the assessment of content separate from the skill development. So again, a proposal that when we are talking about that knowledge and understanding, that this scale is a learning scale that reflects the progression of their learning and would be used for formative assessments, would be used for students to reflect on their own growth and for instructors and students to work together to benchmark growth over time. So being able to define those key concepts and vocabulary, to explore and explain some of those principles, strategies, concepts, identifying where their strengths are and where their opportunities are for growth, and then over time being able to, as part of the foundational work that needs to happen in parallel with the skill development, which is the second assessment level for skill. So this reflects a very similar process that we have been using over the years here. And what we were finding is, it's one thing to assess a student's skill, but we were not getting at that other foundational knowledge and understanding. So the proposal that we're going to try this year would have students at the base of this learning when they're just starting out practicing in the classroom. So it's teacher-led scenarios, teacher-led activities, where everything is appropriately scaffolded and they're getting a hands-on but very supportive experience in the skill development. So in my program, that's things like on the first day of school, I send my students in small groups into Nate's office, which adjoins my classroom. They have a whiteboard with the classroom phone number on it, and they all called and made that phone ring. And I picked it up and put it on speakerphone, and the rest of us listened as they said their name and explained why they wouldn't be in class today, and practice that routine and that expectation of home, which all of them were horrified, as you can imagine. But we practiced it, and then they were like, "Okay, that was that." So that's this practice. And then the next level would be, again, still in the classroom context, but where they would be in more of their lab experiences. So in my program, that might be running a hollow cup, which is our cafe, or the open door at the Eastburg High School. In automotive, you know, maybe working in the shop, they might be out in the community, but they're in the context of our learning time, and they can support and coaching in their practice. And then a 3 is where we're going to expect all students to be when they leave our programs, and that is ready for entry-level jobs. So I think that's another thing that we've done is kind of rein in with the support of our advisory boards what is realistic for all students. All students do not have to be star amazing employees who are ready to be managers. That's not what we're looking for. Some of them will be, and some of them have been, and some of them go on. All of them go on to do amazing things. But this is the expectation, and this is driven by industry. What it looks like in practice will be instructor driven with the support of the advisory boards, where they will be setting up. This is what the Employability connection problem setting looks like in the automotive industry, in construction tech, in medical careers, in human services. And then at the 4 level, the students who really excel, go above and beyond, have a body of evidence that supports that they can do this independently in a variety of contexts. And the goal here is that that body of evidence be employer facing and be something that they can take with them that is industry relevant. So not necessarily like a school portfolio, but something that industry would expect from employees in that context. So for example, our human services program is preparing many students to go off to be teachers. And all of you teachers in the room, or anyone who's been licensed as a teacher, know that you have to have a portfolio to be licensed by the AOB. So helping them to develop a portfolio that reflects that process that they will already have to do when they leave here is the goal that we have. We do not, at this point, we're not expecting that this is where all students will be, but that this is it's something that we may be striving